first contact resolution is something you're probably already measuring today. There's a lot of talk about that. There's a lot of reasons why first contact resolution is important. So first contact resolution essentially says the first time that this interaction comes in, the first person who handles it from end to end, and there's no need for another follow-on interaction to resolve that issue. Now, you probably know that first contact resolution is difficult to measure because at the time that you've finished, at the time that the person who's handling that interaction is finished with it, they probably many times think that they have finished it, that it has been accomplished, and maybe even the customer feels that that has been resolved as well. But later on, things happen to make you wind back and think, well, perhaps it wasn't. They do call back anyway. And from a measurement point of view, it's difficult to determine if they call back 5 days later, should we have counted that as FCR? If they call back a week later, etc. So those are, it's difficult to measure, but we're just going to take it for granted that first contact resolution is something that's important and something that you want to be measuring. Next contact resolution builds on that. Builds on that such that we're not just trying to resolve the thing that's right in front of us at the time, but we're trying to anticipate what might cause another interaction to come in the future and resolving that one while I've got the person on the phone, as it were. Now, part of the reason why this is important is that there are a lot of studies that show that depending upon your perspective, first contact resolution measurements are different. So companies who measure first contact resolution either by post-interaction survey or by looking at agent dispositions tend to think that first contact resolution is somewhere in the neighborhood of 75%. But if you talk to customers, their perspective is much lower, something like 60% or lower. So there's this delta between what actually is totally resolved and what the customer believes there is resolved. So even if your first contact resolution or first call resolution score is high, I would encourage you to consider next contact resolution as another means to drive it higher and bridge the gap between that 75 and 60%. Does that make sense? Okay. So why is next contact resolution important at all? I think there's probably a multitude of reasons. I'm going to talk about 4. That it improves your first contact resolution, it increases customer satisfaction and their loyalty, reduces operational costs, and it enhances the agent experience. So we'll take those one at a time. Enacting next call resolution strategy will improve first contact resolution rates because as you drive down future contacts, you're necessarily improving first contact resolution. And again, this gets at that delta between the 75% and the 60%. It improves customer satisfaction. So it's widely understood, widely known, widely accepted that one of the chief inhibitors to customer satisfaction is needing to make multiple contacts on the same issue. So multiple contacts drives down, hurts your customer satisfaction, hurts your CSAT scores. So to the extent that you can eliminate that, you're going to improve, user error, total user error. You're going to raise your customer satisfaction. And we know that there's probably a number of reasons why that's important. So there are studies that show that customer satisfaction is strongly correlated with customer loyalty. If your business or one of your agents' charges is to upsell or to make additional sales, then first contact resolution is strongly correlated with your ability to upsell. And certainly, to the extent that customer satisfaction is related to loyalty, it's you want to make sure you're driving your customer satisfaction up from that perspective as well. It reduces costs. So there's a relationship between volume and cost, obviously, both in terms of head count, also in terms of telephony cost, in terms of everything. So reducing those contacts also is going to reduce costs. Now, there's the other thing to consider with respect to cost is that those follow-on interactions are more expensive than the initial ones for a couple of reasons. So that first contact comes in, the follow-on, the customer is going to explain the context of the previous interaction and why they're calling back. They may even express some displeasure at needing to call back or write back or whatever the case may be. So it's going to extend those handle times. Also, there are studies that show that people who call back a second or third time are 42% more likely to ask to speak to a supervisor. So even if your agent is able to de-escalate it and handle the call him or herself, that call is going to take a little bit longer for that de-escalation. And if they're not able to de-escalate that call, then it's going to go to a supervisor who's even more expensive. So those additional contacts are very expensive. So improving your first call, reducing your volume through next contact resolution is a way to reduce your contact center costs. Any questions about that? All right, agent satisfaction, something I don't think really gets enough attention. And I'm going to come back to a story about that in a second. But if you're developing and instituting a next contact resolution strategy, essentially empowers your agents to do the thing they actually want to do, which is resolve customer issues. And doing so is going to raise their customer satisfaction. So there's an SQM study that shows that companies where there is a first call resolution strategy in place, and where that's one of the metrics that agents are driven or held accountable to, those agents have higher employee satisfaction rates. And I think that really drives at, again, the fact that our agents, our best agents, certainly want to be resolving issues, and they don't want to be penalized for asking the extra question, for spending the extra minute to make sure that they've actually fully taken care of that particular issue.